Some nations are like open books. Their histories, their cultures, it's all right there for the world to see. But others hold their secrets close. They have these mysteries that are woven so deep into who they are that they just defy easy explanation. Japan, for sure, is one of those nations.
You probably think of cherry blossoms, right? Gleaming skyscrapers, ancient temples. But what if I told you that behind all that familiar imagery, there's a reality that is so much more complex, a history that's just packed with contradictions and questions that, honestly, rarely get asked? So, let's dive into some of those hidden mysteries.
So, where do we even begin? Well, let's start at the very beginning, with a mystery that actually challenges the whole foundational story of the Japanese people. Who were the original inhabitants of this island nation? The answer is probably not what you're thinking.
Now get this, it's a startling historical fact that just completely complicates the story of Japanese ancestry. Before the people we know as Japanese arrived, that's the Yayoi people, who brought rice farming over from the mainland, the islands were home to someone else entirely.
And this is where the science makes it even more fascinating. These first people, they're known as the Jomon, and they are a total genetic puzzle. DNA evidence shows they weren't just different from the modern Japanese who came later. They were also completely distinct from the Chinese, Koreans, or anyone else on the East Asian mainland. It's like they're this unique branch of humanity, and we still don't really know where they came from.
And that's our first huge mystery, an entire population that thrived for thousands and thousands of years, only to be replaced, leaving behind this giant question mark at the very root of Japan's family tree.
Okay, so from the mystery of where they came from, let's turn to the myths that actually built the nation. Every country tells itself stories, right? It's how we define who we are. Well, in Japan, these stories are incredibly powerful, and they shaped everything from the government to the warrior class for centuries.
At the very heart of Japanese power was this one concept, Arahitogami. Now, this wasn't just some vague, divine right to rule like you saw in Europe. No. This was the official, state-sponsored belief that the emperor was, quite literally, a living god on Earth.
And you can't deny the power of that idea. This belief in divinity is a huge part of what sustained the Japanese imperial line for over 1,500 years. It's the oldest continuous monarchy on the entire planet. That kind of stability is just unheard of in human history. So it raises this really critical question. Was this a genuine spiritual belief that just sort of grew over time? Or was it one of the most successful political tools in history, carefully designed to lock in an unbroken chain of command and guarantee absolute obedience?
And that brings us to the emperor's enforcers, the samurai. We all know the myth, right? Noble warriors, loyal, living by a strict code of honor. But the reality? It was often a lot messier. Many were basically mercenaries for hire, used to put down peasant rebellions, and they were constantly fighting bloody wars against each other for more power and land.
So why does that romantic, idealized myth of the noble samurai stick around so strongly, both in Japan and out, when the history books tell a much more complicated and frankly often brutal story? The creation of that perfect image is a mystery all on its own.
And this seems to point to a bigger pattern of, well, softening history. Take the Sengoku period, the Warring States period. We're talking about more than a century of non-stop, savage civil war, one of the most violent eras in world history. But in the official retellings, its sharpest edges often get sanded right down.
And this really makes you wonder about national memory, doesn't it? How much of a country's history is about what it remembers, and how much is about what it's decided to intentionally forget?
This whole idea of curating its own story, of controlling what the world sees and what stays hidden, well, it didn't just apply to its history books. For hundreds of years, it applied to its actual borders.
I mean, just look at the track record. It's truly remarkable. Japan is one of the very, very few major nations on Earth that has never been successfully conquered by a foreign power. They fought off the Mongol hordes twice. They resisted that huge wave of European colonization that swallowed up most of Asia. They just remained unconquered.
So, what was their secret? Was it just the luck of being an island nation protected by the sea? Or was it something deeper? A conscious, strategic choice to stay impenetrable, a kind of national defiance that was baked right into the culture itself.
That strategy, well, it reached its ultimate expression right here, 250 years.
Think about that. For 2.5 centuries, Japan made a decision that is basically unique in modern history, to completely and utterly shut itself off from the entire world.
And this timeline really puts that decision into staggering context. While Europe was being totally remade by the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution, Japan was silent. While America was fighting for its independence, Japan was silent. While the Industrial Revolution was changing what it even meant to be a modern society, Japan was a nation basically frozen in time. A completely unique experiment in deliberate isolation.
Seriously, just try to wrap your head around that for a second. What does that do to a country's soul? How does it shape the way people think, the way they interact, the way they see their place in the universe, when for generation after generation, the rest of the world just didn't exist to them? And that brings us to our final and maybe most relevant mystery today. All these different historical threads we've been following, the isolation, the myth-making, the intense discipline, they all come together to create the very unique social contract of modern Japan.
In modern Japan, there's this deeply ingrained social code. The harmony of the group, it's called wa, is the most important thing. And this means you often suppress your own feelings for the good of the group, your personal opinions give way to consensus, and every single person is expected to maintain an incredibly high standard of personal conduct.
And on the surface, the results are undeniable. This model is often credited as the engine that powered Japan's post-war economic miracle. People point to it as the reason for famously low crime rates, spotless public spaces, and just incredible social order. In many ways, the system looks like it works perfectly.